King Charles will reportedly mark the one-year anniversary of Queen Elizabeth's death at Balmoral.
It's not something that's celebrated because actually it's, marking the day that your parent died. So I think it's sort of a shift for outsiders to think about it and realize that actually it's quite a somber day.
Plus, how Prince William feels about his upcoming visit to New York City as Prince George celebrates his 10th birthday. And royal author Christopher Anderson reveals how King Charles and Prince William have formed a deeper bond as he slams Harry and Meghan's split rumors.
They're trying to carve out this new life for them in Hollywood. I suppose they expected the honeymoon to go on, and as time passed, more and more of their allies and friends and admirers have just fallen away because they see this as a kind of a narcissistic, romp through Montecito.
We've got that plus so much more on today's Royally Us. Hello to our fellow royal lovers and welcome to Royally Us. I'm Christina, that's Christine, and Prince George is 10 years old. Let's just talk about that.
No, he's still an infant wrapped in that lovely white blanket. I honestly cannot believe it. It has me feeling so old.
So old. But like you said, it just seems like yesterday they were out on the steps introducing him to the world. And now 10 years later, here we are with this adorable new portrait that we're going to talk about a little bit more later on. But can't believe it. Can't believe it.
It's really unbelievable. It really reminds you of like history in the making. And we talk a lot about some like historical moments later in the show. And all of this is just like, wow, like this is going to end up in history books. It's crazy.
It is. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. All right. Well, lots to get to, especially what you guys had to say about last week's show. Lervan says, as an English woman, I feel immensely proud of Catherine, Princess of Wales. Not only is she lovely to look at, she's a lovely person too. I have always felt proud of Anne, the Princess Royal. She has a strong character and has devoted her life to service. Two wonderful women in different ways. Yes, seems like a lot of people admire both of these women.
Everyone loves Princess Anne. She's really having a moment, and I absolutely love that.
Yes, definitely. And then moving on to E. Edward says, highly watched. Doesn't equate to well done, talking about Harry and Meghan's Netflix doc. It was highly watched because it was gossipy and dished more dirt and private information. Emmys are not given for highly watched. You are correct.
I think that's the point that a lot of people have made, that even though it was highly watched, it was like had really, really high numbers. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily good filmmaking, or, like any sort of, record-breaking types of cinematography or documentary making. It just means that a lot of people tuned in.
Totally. And Angela says the same thing. People only watched it to see how many lies they told. The curtsy was abhorrent. And even though watched by many, lots of thumbs down. A lot of people were not happy about that curtsy moment, and let everybody know about that.
Yeah, well, again, and the Netflix series sort of being up for awards, honestly, it just digs these stories back up and people are upset about them again. So it's better that they're not nominated for awards, that we just kind of leave this in the past.
Yes, leave it in the past, move on, as we hope everybody will be. And we'll talk to Christopher a little bit about that later on, like what's kind of next for the couple. But before we get into it, let's get into our royal roundup. And it's being reported that King Charles will privately mark the first anniversary of his accession in Scotland. The Telegraph reported that the king is expected to spend September 8th in quiet reflection on the Balmoral estate, surrounded by sweeping scenery of Elizabeth II's beloved Highlands. Of course, I can't believe it's almost a year ago. Queen Elizabeth passed away on September 8th of 2022. And that was, of course, when King Charles immediately became king. And, spending the day in private reflection follows the tradition that was established by Queen Elizabeth, who did the same. She spent her accession day on February 6th at Sandringham, where her father, King George, passed away in 1952. But like I said, we are creeping up on a year and it just flew by.
It really did. But I think it was because we had, she died, and then you had the lying in state, and then the funeral, and sort of all these firsts, these first visits, this first overseas visit, then the coronation, all of it has sort of broken that time up. It's incredible to think again about how much history has unfolded in the last year. Absolutely. I mean, overwhelming if you really think about it. But I think people always find it interesting, especially when you get to Jubilee years, like the 25th anniversary of ascension to the throne. It's not something that's celebrated because actually it's, marking the day that your parent died. So I think it's sort of a shift for outsiders to think about it and realize that actually it's quite a somber day. And it's good that he's carrying on this tradition of sort of reflection, returning to the place where his mother died, and just it's almost a way to spend time with her and with her memory.
Yeah. No, and that was such a special place to her as well. So like you said, it's not a day of celebration, it's a day of mourning, and you don't want to be around a lot of people during those times.
Yeah.
So it's nice, like you said, he's spending the day in reflection. All right, well, moving on. This is an interesting story. So the amount of money given to the British royal family by the UK government is projected to increase significantly in the coming years. Now, this is according to the latest review of the annual sovereign grant. So the Treasury officials said that the proportion of the Crown's estate profits paid to the royals will be reduced to 12% from next year, down from the current rate of 25%. Now, despite that cut, an unexpected surge in profits means the royal family is poised to receive more money than in previous years. So the amount awarded as a sovereign grant is tied to the profits generated by the Crown estate, which covers all of the hereditary assets belonging to the monarch, including large portions of land, vast swaths of British coastline and seabed. So the portfolio is worth a total of about 20.5 billion, yes, $1 billion. And it's generated substantial additional income from the offshore wind facilities owned by the royal family. So it seems like, while they're getting their percentages cut, they still will be making more money. At the new 12% formula, this means the monarchy could receive 124.8 million euros in 2025 to 2026 and 126 million the following year. So good to be a royal.
It was so interesting to see the headlines. One headline is the percentage has been cut in half. And the next headline is they're getting so much more money. Later on, representatives from the palace clarified that there was sort of an increase in the bottom line to fund refurbishments in Buckingham Palace. And so either next year or the following year, those numbers will be significantly less, because right now it's like an enormous amount of money, but there's all those refurbishments going on to sort of the upkeep of Buckingham Palace is hugely expensive to keep it, in good shape, especially since it is such a huge tourist. I mean, it's iconic. You have to keep it in good shape because you can't have London without Buckingham Palace. But yeah, the sovereign grant, anytime the sovereign grant comes about, anytime we talk about expenses for the royal family, there's always lots of really, really strong opinions. It's such a hot topic, but I think at the end of the day, you can't not have the money for the royal family.
Yes, no, it's so true. Like you said, Buckingham Palace and London go hand in hand. Upkeep is important, and, it might seem like a lot of money, but it is going to places for upkeep and to, to keep it running, keep it moving. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's been sort of like historic tourism to places like Windsor Castle to, where you can see the Queen's resting place, and all of that stuff means you need to pay more staff, things like that generate more upkeep that requires more money.
Definitely. All right. Well, mark your calendars because Prince William is returning to New York City in September, and he'll have a full schedule when he lands in the Empire State. So a source does tell Us Weekly that Prince William will be attending the Earthshot Prize Summit and several other engagements and meetings while he is in New York for just over 2 days. The Innovation Summit will be held on September 19th during New York Climate Week. We hear that his schedule will be very full, and he's very much looking forward to this trip across the pond. Now, the prince hasn't been in New York City on an official visit since 2014. He was scheduled to return during last year's Innovation Summit, which was also held in New York City during September. However, he canceled his appearance in the wake of Queen Elizabeth's death. So September 19th, he will be here. And it's pretty exciting.
Mark your calendars, get prepared. I know when William and Kate made their visit to Boston, so many people made the trip out to see them. It's really exciting when William or Kate or, a major member of the British royal family is in the US. It's a fun opportunity to do some royal sighting. And it sounds like he'll be so busy. So there'll be lots of events for, people to sort of stand outside and catch a wave.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Like you said, mark your calendars. There's going to be a lot of photo ops, a lot of things going on in just 2 days, but nice that he will be here in New York City. And it's been, almost 10 years that it's been an official visit. So long overdue.
Yes. I think it's time. Who should it be? Should it be King Charles or should it be William and Kate?
Yes. William and Kate, bring them on. Bring on anybody. We're just happy to have
everybody.
you.
Bring Louis. Bring Louis.
Seriously, if there's anybody that we want, it's Louis. All right. Well, moving on to the Princess of Wales's brother, James, is thanking her for shining her royal spotlight on mental health. So James sat down with Good Morning Britain to talk about how his puppy Birdie is doing at guide dog training, and said that Kate and Prince William's longtime work with the important topic helped him speak out about struggling with his own depression. He said, I think what's fantastic is that they're in a position where they are talking about their own mental health. And I think it's something that, broadly, it is a challenge. I remember early on to say the words out loud that I was feeling depressed or I thought I had depression was impossible. But actually, through some of the work that they've been doing over time, it gave me the confidence to sort of speak out. I have more to thank for them and the sort of focus they've put towards it. I love this. I love that the work that, they're doing this work to help, millions of people, but it's also helping those that are closest to them as well. And it seems like they have a really good relationship.
It's so nice to hear from someone, just anyone, but especially I think from someone so close to Kate, that their work has actually had this sort of influence. Because really, if one person speaks out every time they talk about it, that it makes it worthwhile, And I think it's particularly interesting that William works so closely with organizations that encourage men in particular to speak out and talk about their mental health. So that to me is just, it shows that his work is having an impact. And that must mean a lot to William and Kate to hear that.
Oh, definitely. And like you said, it's kind of taboo for men to speak out about their mental health issues. And this does shine a light on it. And it is so important, and to feel like they have an outlet and to see that other people are kind of going through the same thing. So definitely some good work. All right. Well, this was interesting. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex's Archewell Foundation shared Equimundo's State of the World's Fathers 2023 report, along with a message about why the research matters. So the international nonprofit, which is dedicated to engaging men and boys in gender equality, polled over 12,000 people in 17 countries on caregiving and what bars equal participation between men and women. So the Archewell Foundation stated the 2023 data shows that men are increasingly involved in caregiving and would like to increase their care at work at home, although deeply ingrained social norms and a lack of supportive policies and power structures discourage them from doing so. The report recognizes care work as the bedrock of society and calls for continued advancements toward gender equality. It also emphasizes the need for media representation that normalizes men's caregiving roles. Equimundo thanked Archewell for generously providing support for the research, but it is interesting that, I'm sure more men want to maybe stay home and be the caregivers and, spend that quality time with their family, but feels that society, tells them that they can't or tells them that they shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, and you think about things like paternity leave, that's almost non-existent.
Right.
Even when, who does the school call first when your kid's sick? It's almost always mom. I mean, just these societal norms, it's great that Meghan and Harry are sort of speaking out about this, shining a spotlight on the organization, and especially with the work that Meghan and Harry did when organizations were campaigning for paid leave or more supportive paid leave. This really just ties into that work. And again, this is the sort of thing we want to see from them, quietly supporting these organizations, making an impact using the Archewell Foundation and showing us how they're doing that. So I think that this was a great example on how to support these causes in a meaningful way.
Definitely. All right. Well, let's spill some more royalty about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, because they are considering moving to Malibu 3 years after settling down in California. So a source exclusively told Us Weekly that they love their life there in Montecito, but feel a bit more remote and removed from the city. The Duchess grew up on the West Coast and visited Malibu often. She loves being by the beach, which is why she and Harry decided to move to Montecito. Now, while nothing has been decided yet about making a permanent move to the oceanfront city, the insider does say the possibility is definitely on their radar. A second source tells us that Harry and Meghan fell in love with the area after staying in a friend's rental home over the past 2 summers and have been casually house hunting there. So wonder if they're looking for just a second home, if they're looking to maybe downsize. I mean, Malibu is not much cheaper than Montecito, I would imagine. Interesting move. I mean,
I don't think this isn't a money-saving tactic.
Right.
It is interesting. We've heard several stories about them wanting to move somewhere new. So I think Montecito is probably just not working out for them for whatever reason. Sometimes you move to a neighborhood and you really find it's not for you. So it'll be interesting to see, if we ever see that massive Montecito house actually sell and where they'll end up next. We know that they love the beach. I mean, Malibu could not be more beautiful. And I think maybe a smaller house that's just more manageable, that they can be closer to the beach, walk the dogs, next to the ocean. Maybe that's what they're looking for.
Maybe, who knows? A lot of things up in the air. Well, speaking of the air, this is a crazy story. Not sure if this is true, but Prince Harry and Meghan Markle tried to hitch a ride back to America on Air Force One after Queen Elizabeth's funeral, but were reportedly denied. So sources told the Daily Mail that it was an immediate no from the White House, adding that the request was a non-starter. A source told the publication it would have caused such a commotion, it would have strained relations with the palace and the new king. White House and a spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex did not reply for comment. I can't really imagine them asking to use Air Force One, but they have surprised us in the past.
I mean, could it have been like a joking passing comment that someone overheard? I don't know. This is so bizarre. I can't imagine anyone suggesting that, can I hitch a ride back with you? I mean, it's such a bizarre story. A lot of people have really bought into it. I do wonder if it was sort of like a passing joke at some event and someone's just run with it. So interesting, though. I mean, I can't imagine.
I can't imagine, but would love to know. Would love to know. All right. Well, let's break down some royal rules. And with so much negative press surrounding Harry and Meghan lately, we caught up with royal author Christopher Anderson, who gave us his take on how the couple are coping with the backlash, where they go from here, and how this actually strengthened William and Charles's relationship. Take a look. How do you feel like William and Charles's relationship has changed over the years, especially now that he is king? It seems like they kind of rely on one another a little bit more than they have had to in the past.
Yes, and of course they've had to put up this united front against Harry and Meghan. I mean, they've been insulted by members of their own family. It's been quite the ordeal for them, and I think that they kind of circled the wagon, so to speak, and they've come out of that with a stronger bond. They seem to be. I mean, William and Kate always were just naturals at this from the very beginning, and they're just continuing with that. And we'll have to wait and see about George, but I think he seems to be surprisingly comfortable in his role.
Definitely. Everybody's been wondering, has there been any communication, have you heard, between Charles and William and Harry? I feel like every time we talk, we always ask the same thing, but but everybody's waiting to see if maybe something will happen.
I don't see it. As a matter of fact, we were talking, but a lot of people talk about the fact that the Emmys were not. They were dissed about Harry and Meghan's documentary did not get nominated. And everyone thought it would, because there are a lot of it's all wonderful work, I'm sure. And of course, Michael J. Fox's movie, autobiographical film, documentary, whatever you want to call it, still is remarkable. And he got 7 nominations for that. So it's, there are other things out there that they're great. But you would have thought, given their profile, that they might have gotten a nomination. And I'm sure they thought that. And the reports were that they were devastated by the fact that they didn't. I mean, I don't know. I think they've got a little thicker skin than that. But but I don't see any kind of, I don't see anybody holding out the olive branch on either side. So it's almost as if they've just settled into this situation, and it's unfortunate, really.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned before how they were devastated. It seems like Harry and Meghan have been taking quite a beating in the press lately. I think the Wall Street Journal called them a flop, a Hollywood flop. I mean, do you feel like something like this could have a negative effect on their marriage?
Don't you?
How can it not?
About the they've admitted the fact that the pressures have led them in the past to feelings, to arguments and quarrels and their tensions inside their marriage. They've always been there because they have to go through an awful lot and have been criticized so soundly. And of course, she was suicidal at one point. She talked about that. And that was before all of this. So trying to carve out this new life for them in Hollywood, I suppose they expected the honeymoon to go on. And as time passed, more and more of their allies and friends and admirers have just fallen away because they see this as a kind of a narcissistic, romp through Montecito. And it's not really, they're not getting the kind of support now that they had when they arrived.
Right. Yeah.
A fickle industry too, as you know. I mean,
It is. I mean, there's rumors that that they might be moving to Malibu and that she can be dipping her toe back into, the whole Hollywood scene. I mean, do you feel like that's the proper next step for them?
I don't think it's the proper next step. I don't think she was going. That would be a step down, wouldn't it, if she resumed her acting? I think she would look at it that way, the same way that Grace Kelly, Princess Grace, toward the end of her life, it was always talk that she was going to go back into acting, because that was her true passion. I'm not so sure it is Meghan's true passion. I think she wants to be a force and social force. As a matter of fact, they have this new issue now that they've embraced, which is man care, I think they call it. It's like having, giving men the kind of same attention, letting them participate in the family, being more concerned about men's emotional well-being and all of that. Again, awfully odd for people who have basically apparently turned their backs on their own fathers,
Right.
to become some champions of fathers everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Things is very hypocritical. So, and it's no surprise that people might think that.
Right. Would you be totally shocked if they decided to eventually split? There have been rumors about that out there that, maybe their marriage really is on the rocks, but, they have been through so much before this that, and, obviously 2 small kids as well.
Nobody wants to, do I think now that they've moved out into separate rooms and or they're living in separate lives or taking a breather from each other, I don't buy that. I don't see any evidence of that. I think it's a lot of rumors and gossip out there. But it's not just a Hollywood marriage. It's a Hollywood marriage with the whole tensions of royalty and thrown in. And again, with all of the social media, I don't see how frankly, people on that level, it's very hard to imagine how they keep their sanity because no privacy, right? Whatever. And people are constantly harping about them. And then if you pay attention to it, the best thing they can do is ignore everything. Mm-hmm. They're not going to, the criticism. Mm-hmm. No. No, see what people are saying,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see if this marriage survives. Yes.
No, definitely. Well, hopefully it does. Like we said, 2 small babies involved and, there's right. Exactly. Yeah. And you hopefully maybe down the line, something will happen between the Harry and the family. But do you think that Meghan's the next one to write a book? Do you think that they should continue talking about their time in the royal family, or should that chapter be officially closed and they kind of move on? Because I think a lot of people are kind of sick and tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, but I think she'll always, we've seen her perspective to some extent, but I'm sure there's always another rabbit to pull out of the hat, some fact that we didn't know or some incident that would make us all sit up and take notice. So sure, I'm sure if she wanted to write a book, it would be an enormous bestseller because once again, it would contain things we don't yet know and details. And that probably is not in the distant future, I would imagine. I think they're going to take advantage of where they are, and she will do something like that.
Always good to get perspective from our good friend Christopher.
Yes, I always love his insights. He has so much experience and has really seen so many different scandals that it's great to hear from him.
That is true. All right. Well, let's wrap this up with a really happy story because like we said, Prince George turned double digits and the palace commemorated the milestone with a brand new portrait. The photo, which was taken on the steps of Windsor Castle, features the 10-year-old wearing a blue checkered collar shirt and slacks and was released on July 21st, just one day before his official birthday. It was taken by photographer Millie Plinkington, and which is kind of a change because usually Princess Kate usually takes the photos, but I guess they decided to change it up for the birthday. Maybe she was busy baking him his cake. There's a lot of preparations that she has to do for a big birthday, but like we said, can't believe he's 10 years old and looks just like Prince William.
Oh my goodness, he looks so grown up. If you look at last year's photo compared to this year's photo, last year was a little boy. This year is like a tiny man. It's so bizarre.
It really is.
It feels like it was just yesterday that he was like the royal baby coming out of the Lindo wing wrapped in a little white blanket. So special to see. I love looking back on the photos year after year. Some people did slideshows and you can sort of scroll back and see I love that they shared these photos. It's nice to see, you know, just again, like the kids growing up. I think it's really, really sweet.
Time flies. I'm sure he had a great birthday celebration. I'm sure he did. All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode of Royally Us. Keep commenting, keep subscribing. We'll see you guys next week for what will sure be another big week of royal news. For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.